We are live. Property Buzz, Friday morning, 31st of July. The day payday super arrives for most Australian employers, which I think is going to hurt a lot of people. So anyway, that all becomes effective largely today. So that's changing probably the cash flow for a lot of real estate businesses, having to plan and prepare for that. But anyway, 31st of July. Property markets.
Where do you start?
Just how stuffed is Australian property? I'm going to start Liam Garman, my co-host of Property Buzz, which is the most popular property podcast, I would say, around at the moment.
You know what? It's pretty cool because when you and I started this about 6-7 months ago, we were musing. You know, you and I like music. We
like to muse.
People have more colourful ways talking S word.
Yep.
Is typically how they do it. But then we realized, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks in, then we hit like 4,000 downloads from the episode after about 2 weeks.
Yeah, straight away.
Oh, people like it. Yeah. And then you start getting the fan mail. We got fan mail. Our videos this week were submitted by fans.
By fans.
Fan mail. And you know what? It's because, and I think we're filling a void in the market. And it's not to rehash things that we've spoken about in the past, but the finfluencers out there peddling BS every single day, you know, like, how many people are being misled by finfluencers out there? I'm not talking in property, but there are, and you know, you see all the new property spruikers that are coming on board, and that are using things like capital gains tax and negative gearing to get people into suboptimal assets and suboptimal asset classes as well. You know, I've done a few podcasts over the last fortnight, Phil. And multiple people that I've spoken to, and we're talking across BAs, brokers, everyone in the real estate space, I've had multiple people say that they've had clients do deals for 2-bedroom apartments in Melbourne for over $1 million. Now, not knocking that, right? There might be a time and a place for it. There's always going to be, you know, if you're looking for like a hyper luxury unit, of course, you know, there's always going to be demand for things like that. And if it is luxury and if it's in a good location, you know, $1 million makes sense. But not necessarily when it's a run-of-the-mill market, and not necessarily when it's when it's a run-of-the-mill unit, in a market where you can buy established dwellings for 50-60% of that, right? So, and a lot of these, you know, the feedback is, and you know, I did a podcast on it yesterday where people genuinely believed in it, and the sales tactics, the brainwashing, and what we've seen for years and years and years, but it's coming to a point now, and I think it's more acute now, and it's something that everyone needs to be aware of. You and I have long, you know, warned against, you know, the potential of buyers agents, but also people who pretend to be buyers agents, but they don't necessarily have a real estate license. They're just buyers service or something. Buyers service. But they're salespeople. You know, they get a commission from you and the seller. And if there is a time now where potentially the leads, the pipeline for BAs going into the future dries up, if they want their business to be viable, be careful, because they might be getting, copying a clip of the ticket on the other side as well. Yeah. How are they doing it? If they're getting a sales commission, if someone is paying them, logically, if you're being paid to flog a product, then it's not the best product.
We'll talk about BAs just for a moment. I'm hearing in the grapevine a lot of BAs are shedding staff because volume is drying up. So, okay, that's just a natural dynamic of business when markets ebb and flow. However, what it will do will potentially prompt bad behaviours from some buyers agents, or project marketers masquerading as buyers agents. So, you're going to see some practices which aren't appropriate, and obviously it's buyer beware. But you know, I don't want that to be the focus.
You know where we're seeing it now? Especially, and we spoke about it last week. It's definitely worth speaking about again, because there's only one more week of it. One more week of it is the suboptimal deals that are being presented for SMSFs.
Yep.
Now, every buyer's agent that I speak to, and I speak to dozens of buyer's agents a week, everyone's, we're so busy. We've never been this busy right now. How are you looking after August 10, which is the SMSF deadline? Oh, it's pretty dry after that. We spoke about it last week, but what we're viewing is there are tens of thousands of people that are essentially rushing the market at the moment.
Yeah, well, maybe there might be
Yep.
10,000. I want to talk about this. My beef for the week is poor decision making based on poor data or poor research, and this is intrinsically connected with this SMSF stuff. The numbers coming out that the government made their assumptions and their decisioning around banning limited recourse borrowing aside of super was that there was only 4,000 of these things done
From the AFIA, the
Australian Finance. So the government made their basis of their decision going. It's such a small part of the market. It's 4,000 of these limited recourse borrowing arrangements done every year. Well, the associations come out and have said, no, it's more like 16,000.
Yep.
Right. So the government's got it wrong by 4 times.
And I want to add something on here. So that the association has, and it's very clear, it's very black and white,
Yeah.
they know of 16,000 loans going to SMSFs, right?
Yeah.
They don't
Annually.
have the full picture of the data.
No.
It is with the amount of lenders, the amount of brokers, the amount of trusts, the amount of accountants, even the number of associations in Australia. Keep in mind, and I've spoken to a few experts on this because when that data came out, I reached out to one of our colleagues, Annie Kane, who's very, she runs the Advisor and Broker Daily, the trade mastheads for broking. She knows brokers up and down the country. There's very few people in the country that know broking like Annie. And I said, what's the process for getting the data on this? Like, how can you even do it? And she said, oh, mate, it'd be a headache because multiple associations, so you can't just rely on one association. People don't necessarily report it as well. You're not going to get every second, third, fourth tier lender. They're not going to report necessarily how many loans they've written. The thing with this is like almost a self-reported figure of 16,000.
Yeah.
The likelihood is that there are more that just aren't being reported by second, third, fourth tier lenders or aggregators that they're not giving the full picture. So what it shows, and I actually think that would be that would probably be a little bit underbaked because, and you've seen it very acutely as well, over the last 12 months, there was such a push for buyers agents knowing that, the ability to get those real sweet deals. And I'm talking about like when you used to buy in Logan or Ipswich for 200-300K, they don't really exist anymore. So this is a new untapped source of capital for people to continue buying property. And it was a very concerted campaign from brokers and buyers. And it's not a bad thing, by the way. It's not a bad thing at all. It's an opportunity for you to build your future. I totally get it. But there was a very concerted campaign over the last 12, 24 months, well before we were doing Property Buzz, where people were talking about buying through your SMSF. I would hazard a guess that data doesn't even capture that tail end or even the last 3 or 4 months where you'd probably see that figure again.
So if they got it wrong, let's just say the data that the government has used to make their assumptions about the size and significance of SMSF borrowing, it's wrong.
Yep.
And pretty ill considered the fact that they've made what they thought was a small little change because it didn't really affect that many people, but they're actually starting to see the consequences from this now. I reckon that it will be overturned within about a year to 18 months, I think, because once these compounding factors where they realise, going, oh, wow, it was a lot more than what we thought, and now we've stifled supply because people aren't doing pre-sales on new developments because most people bought it in super funds. I reckon it's going to have to reconsider how easy to be to sort of pull that apart. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whether, the government is happy to go, oh, yeah, we'll make changes. It doesn't matter. They're known to change things. So, yeah, it's just, the beef I've got is how can you make such significant decisioning around poor data? And again, back to this idea of if they were company directors inside of whether listed or non-listed companies making those assumptions and those decisions with consequences which will come out, where's the accountability on this, right? And there is none. But anyway, I want to talk about Dashdot, Liam, which is again, that story continues, and your team's done some great work on it. But before we get there, and it's all connected with the stuff we're talking about. Story here: investors flee the market and blame Albanese, right? So we know markets are softer, and this is like just how stuffed is the Australian property market. Well, we know markets are softer, so a bit slow today because I was out quite late last night at one of our many awards programs.
You did have a pause at the beginning. I've never seen you pause before.
Yeah, I was trying to gather my thoughts, so a little bit slow. So I was at the really big legal awards, Australian Law Awards, last night, late night, chat with lawyers. But anyway, I'll be careful so I don't, so people won't know who I'm talking about. But I had a glass of wine before the event with a former Labor senator, and we had a good old chat, just talking about a whole bunch of different things.
That's a dangerous conversation starter.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. And it was nothing to do with property. We're talking about other things. But I sort of, I had him there, and he's and from what I understand, he's still involved. Former senators, when they leave, they're still connected, right?
Yeah.
They might be a bit more pally and matey, and they're not sort of into the nitty gritty of party politics and stuff, but still connected. And I sort of said to him, I went, tell me about what is going on in the real estate market and how the folks down in Canberra are thinking about it. Everyone's sort of saying, well, the property market's stuffed, and particularly in Sydney and Melbourne, house prices are dropping, and he goes, yeah, that was the idea. And I went, okay, this is good. So really important for me to get as much situational awareness of what's out there. And I went, do the folk down in Canberra, do they really care? Like, what's going on in the property markets and all this noise and stuff around? He goes, that was the point. Like, that was the objective. So,
Yeah.
The fact that, they want prices to be cheaper. That's what they're trying to achieve. They're actually like they want prices to be much more cheaper than where they were. And he's going, wouldn't be surprised if markets come down another 10% in those locations, right? And he goes, and that would be a good thing. That was the idea and the objective, is to actually get people coming out of university or in their jobs outside, whether they're uni graduates or not, like to get them into the markets. Like that's what they're trying to do. They go, they're not really worried. Like they just, whatever. Like this will just breeze and blow over. So you sit in this bubble where everyone's sort of whinging, complaining, saying, these tax changes have stuffed the Australian property market and et cetera, and we talk about these issues, and they need to sort of look on your social media, hear all that's wrong about property markets. But he's like, that's the idea.
Yeah.
So keep calm and carry on.
Yeah.
And I was interested. And I went, what about sort of, what about state governments? And he goes, well, they're going to balance their own books. They're going like the federal government will make their decisions based on the needs and wants. Because the state governments, there's going to be, if there's less activity, there's obviously less
Stamp duty.
the stamp duty. Goes, they're just going to have to work it out. They're going to have to balance their own books, and spend their money properly, And I went, well, like the government's doing. But anyway, so I just thought I'd share that and give some perspective around it, because everyone is saying just how bad the market is and just how confidence has been eroded so much.
Yeah.
He's going, well, that's what they're trying to do.
So you and I were doing on WhatsApp, that's right, my phone out, just some back of envelope calculations. So the number of auctions this last week, as in last Saturday, was 17% lower than this time last year. Now, then you add in the fact that the clearance rate has also dropped by 16% on top of that. And then the average, let's just say the average house. Now, obviously, this is not clean data because, Melbourne is an auction city. Brisbane's not really an auction city, so it's not like for like, but let's just say nationally, house prices have gone down 0.5%.
Yeah.
Let's just be very clear on that. You're seeing the amount of homes that are transacting would have dropped by at least 25%.
Yep.
With sales prices also lower. That would cost with a decrease of just 17% alone would cost state governments $6 billion a year in stamp.
Okay.
Now, I reckon you'd push that up to the mid-20s. You're looking close to $9 billion. Like these are major
That's
cuts.
a big number.
These are big numbers.
Yeah.
These are big numbers. So there's that. To find a $9 billion cut. You and I spoke about the NDIS rorts a few weeks ago. The fact that the government was squibbing over $6 billion, like they're not willing to give that up when that's their admitted fraud figure. Like they admit their $6 billion in fraud, and they weren't. Instead of going after the fraudsters, they just cut the people that could get it. So it's such an odd. Why you going after vulnerable Australians rather than fraudsters? Odd to me, but I'm not in Canberra, so they wouldn't touch it. Where are you going to get $9 billion from? There's that. Now, to the point about making house prices lower, I get it. I notionally get it from a feel-good perspective. But let's say you buy a home, and I'm just doing quick top-of-mind calcs here. In your first year or 2 or 3 of ownership, probably about 80% of your repayments or 75% of your repayments are to interest.
Oh, no.
Be higher?
Oh, heaps.
Higher, okay.
Heaps. Like, I was looking at a thing the other day. I got a P&I mortgage for, I was just doing my accounts with my accountant. And I had a P&I mortgage on something, and I can't remember. So call it $1.5 million, right, for P&I mortgage. Paid P&I rates on it over the course of a year, and the principal deduction over the course of that period, P&I, on $1.5 million, making all these payments was less than $20,000 off the principal.
Yep. So what's the quick maths on that?
So it's
Be the high 90s then, right?
stuff all.
Yeah. Okay.
Stuff, and this loan is 4 years old.
Okay.
So
let's say
so it's all interest.
So let's say for a typical entry level home.
Yeah.
Let's say for an entry level home where people might have a little bit in an offset.
Yeah.
Like a nice figure would be 80%, more likely in the 90s, right?
It would be high 90s.
More likely in the 90s.
Yeah.
So that would mean if house prices go down 10%, you're probably going to be paying for 10 years-ish before you break even. Like that's an appalling thing. That not only means, when you go after investors, that not only means investors get screwed, that would probably mean anyone that's bought a PPOR unless you lucked out and you bought it in a growth market. So if you live in Perth or you live in Brisbane or Adelaide, you're probably going to luck out, right? If you're the 6 million plus Australians that living in Sydney or Melbourne, or some of the smaller cities as well around the country, it's probably going to take you up to a decade to break even with if house prices go down 10%. So there's a few things here. One, when people say, housing's long-term, you're meant to be in there for 30 years. Yeah. One, you and I spoke about this a few weeks ago, that is an incredibly privileged position to be in, that you can live in a home for 30 years. Thousands of Australians every month lose their jobs. And you're going to put these people at risk of negative equity. They're going to go bankrupt. Yeah. There's that. Then there's the second thing, which is you've lied to a generation of young Australians that just buy. Just get on the ladder. Just do it. Because they're going to be living in not a very nice thing, because they did the right thing. They got on the ladder. They're living in a tiny unit in some less than desirable area an hour outside the CBD. Great. It's now worth 50 grand less. You're going to be living and paying for that. And by the way, everything's an interest. Yeah. Everything's going to interest. You've killed a generation of people by doing this. Now it's great, and I'm sorry, Phil. Sorry, it's great. Sure, it's great if you're a Greens voting undergrad that's leaving university now. Fine, great. If you're probably now the average age of a home buyer is 39, right? And that's why I understand cheap house price is probably a good thing. But there's probably 15 years of people there that you're going to push into negative equity.
Yeah.
One turn of the market, whether it's a war in the Middle East, where you and I have spoken about before, or tariffs, or, hey, after, again, what we've spoken about a lot, after May 12, where CBA shares dropped by 11%, we are one government announcement away. From a mortgage crisis, and you have a run, people selling on the share market, and you destroy a generation of Australians. It's not thought out.
And
Rant over.
No, and I think well considered. I've made this point, and I've had this position for quite some time. Australia, whatever that is, needs to potentially reframe the rhetoric to younger Australians, or sub 40 now. We're going to call younger Australians. That the great Australian dream is to be able to buy a home and live in it, right? Look, just based on your maths there, right? Like, we've got to change the narrative. That might be okay and appropriate for some people, but that shouldn't be the front of the agenda. That narrative that success for Australia and as an Australian is that everyone should be able to buy their own home. Like that might be part of it, but I think we've moved on from that, and I think it's inappropriate that certain cohorts still sell this messaging, because what you're talking about there is putting people in a trap that they probably can't get out of. So they just put them on the hamster wheel, and that's what they're going to have to live doing for the next period of time, and they're very vulnerable. This idea that owning your house gives you security, no, it can give you vulnerability. Is it vulnerable or vulnerable?
Well,
either or. It's sort of this contingent vulnerability that might not be healthy.
It's not.
And this is what I want someone to be changing the narrative of it. Going, if that's what you want to do, that's cool. But don't ram it down our throats that is what you need to aspire to, because the numbers don't add up. And these particularly in Sydney and Melbourne, the numbers don't add up.
Yeah. And these are I think this is a very, what I'm about to say sounds dramatic, but I think it's kind of fair. It's like a civilizational risk as Australians, where you have millions of people that are now in a debt trap. Like, it's actually really bad.
But strategically, like, if you want,
pay more tax,
if strategically, you're locking people in.
You are.
And again, going back to my chat with this gentleman last night, he was like, he said,
the point.
But he goes, this is the point. But he goes, well, the government, the economy's in rude health, and revenue's coming in, probably going to be a surplus next year, right? Because of the receipts, the receipts that the government are taking from tax. I know. So take it with and look, I really enjoyed the chat with him. He's a really erudite guy.
This isn't like a press release that they've sent out. This is a conversation. So,
it's a conversation, right? So this is just having a yarn, right?
Pub chat,
off the record yarn. So therefore I'm only doing some anecdotal stuff around it, but that's position, and that's there is the point, right?
Yeah.
So bring property prices down by 20% maybe in Sydney and Melbourne. Who knows from the peaks? It's like, he's like, well, the prices weren't actually worth that much a year ago. That was inflated. It was inflated.
You know what?
By investor activity.
I'm going to say something that's super controversial. Controversial.
Well, that's the idea of this property buzz.
I feel like, when you're about to say a sentence that you're like, I feel like in a few years I'm going to get hung on this. But Melbourne's affordable. And when people complain about housing affordability in Melbourne, I'm like, I don't get it. And that's not to sound unsympathetic. I genuinely just, because there is, and you've highlighted this before. We're talking. You can't. And what's your phrase? Like, you can't compare your now with someone else's 20 years or something.
You can't compare your chapter 1 with someone's chapter.
That's the one.
Chapter 8.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Oh, we're just playing around. And this is just like for fun. I was playing around houses in Melbourne, And I'm like in the middle of Toorak, right? So like probably their top postcode or something.
Yeah, it's like Mossman or
They're Mossman or Vaucluse or
Yeah,
something. And I'm like, 3-bedroom, like massive apartments. I'm talking like, 120 square meters with a courtyard, like 3-bedroom apartments, double garage. It's like $1 million. I'm like, you don't need that, firstly. No, you don't necessarily need that. There are houses, and that's in like the creme de la creme suburbs.
Yeah.
You go out to the suburbs, there are townhouses in the 4s. Like it is.
Yeah.
We are talking when we say like the idea is to collapse house prices. That's not. I don't know. Like I don't see there being like a huge. Like you could still buy apartments in very nice suburbs in the 4s.
Yeah, and
Like,
I just.
Is what I'm saying
I tend to
unfair?
agree with you
I don't know.
in relation to Melbourne because in the big scheme of things, it's still the median value is still 4th or 5th after Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth.
Yeah.
It's 5th, right?
Yeah.
So it is one of the more affordable places in Australia. I bought a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house in Melbourne this year. I can't remember the suburb, the Hampton Park or in and around
that's
there.
the one, yeah.
And it was like 820 grand or somewhere. I can't remember exactly the number.
For a
Like,
better, it's
it's
pretty good.
sort of affordable,
Yeah.
assuming that you're happy to get a P&I mortgage on it and live in it for 30 years and not be vulnerable. But this is the problem with housing is that inherently people are vulnerable because life changes, jobs get lost, you have more kids than you thought, blah blah blah. It's problematic. But but what does all this mean?
Yeah, I think
Markets are softer. Property prices will probably continue to come back. More Australians may get into the market.
Just to square the
loop.
circle,
Yeah.
because just to make sure that someone doesn't replay this video in the future and make me sound heartless. I think my point more broadly is, if you're a young Aussie, and I sympathise with a lot of young Aussies, there are pathways. There are pathways if you're a young Aussie. And to our point before about avoiding the debt traps, yes, like it's ironic. Brisbane is, for first home buyers, there was data that came out about this, but for first home buyers, Brisbane's on average more unaffordable than Sydney because there's just such a lack of unit supply. And you are then kind of forced into either very expensive units or their entry house prices. They're still quite expensive. Yeah. So there are options to avoid the debt trap. And you can go to cities there where you are so close to amenities, where you can do stuff, that employment will be fine. Like there are opportunities and still be able to afford a home. I think the point that I'm trying to make is there's always going to be options out there without over leveraging yourself with a 5% deposit scheme because the government says it's the best thing to do. Yeah. And that's where I'm going to end up.
Yeah, good. I think investors are going to start making less than ideal mistakes, less than ideal decisions, telegraphing the surge in commercial buyers agencies moving forward.
Everyone's a commercial buyers agent now.
And I spent quite a lot of time yesterday chatting with an accountant and a buyer's agent. Everyone's an expert now, and some of the stuff that they're putting forward because you think about it in the old super days, where you could borrow, people are buying $500,000-$700,000 properties inside of their super because essentially that's all they could afford by way of a deposit, right? And ability to service a loan with if they need to draw on sort of their contributions in that. So therefore, that's the price point that people are buying for commercial stock, and not a lot of good commercial stuff out there for those prices. I don't think if you're not getting in for at least $1 million, it's it's subpar stuff. So this is all going to happen around it all. But yeah, that's my musings. It's nice to get different views and perceptions, and it's like that's fine. Nothing to see here. This will be like probably internally the government. Nothing to see here. We just keep pushing back.
Yeah.
What will be. And isn't that the idea? We want housing to be more affordable. Big tick. We've done our job. So,
And you've left a generation of people in negative equity.
Maybe
It's working to pay off debt.
Maybe
it's nice,
maybe
isn't
not.
it?
Maybe not. Anyway.
Well,
I'm for it. Lower prices.
You know what? Maybe not, because the way you started this segment was we expect that once the SMSF changes go through, that pre-sales for new builds will drop by 30-40%. So maybe they won't drop. Maybe you've just throttled supply so much that it'll end up in an equilibrium. I don't know.
Maybe, and that's it. I'm sure smarter people than us about it. Let's talk about Dashdot.
Dashdot.
You guys wrote a story about this, and
Yep.
pretty much, I don't know. It's a social media trend where you talk about what someone else is talking about.
Yeah, pretty much. Everyone's talking.
Everyone's sort of doing, videos with this story behind them.
They are. Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, you should go and read it. But the founder of the Dashdot is back.
He's back.
And he's now a business coach.
He's a business coach.
And probably a lifestyle coach, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, and you know what? The it was very, very widely taken up in the real estate community broadly. Broadly. For background, May 28, I think, in May, Dashdot, one of Australia's larger buyers agencies, went into liquidation. It was a very quirky system for those who are long-term listeners to Property Buzz. I won't go into the details, but essentially quirky in so much as for a lot of people, they charged full upfront fees. For some people, we understand they had guarantees in their contracts as well. We understand that there are also people that paid multiple upfront fees for multiple properties, and they collapsed, owing some of these creditors up to $50,000. So, and we also understand that they were still making sales calls in the days before liquidation. So that's and interestingly as well, 2 years ago, they moved to 96% of the ownership to the British Virgin Islands, I think. So that's Dashdot, right? But the founders are somewhere overseas. We don't know where. We don't know where.
Digital nomads.
That's what they're called. Yeah. That's what they're called now, digital nomads. And Glenn Goose McGrath popped up as a business coach. We were sent his new business coaching website by a contact. And
so you guys were on this first.
We were on this first. And look, I think the thing, and I've got to pick my words really carefully, the disappointing thing about the marketing strategy around this, and this is my opinion and the opinion of many in the industry, is that the website is filled with instances of marketing copy where they're talking about, I've done it all, where Goose is talking about, I've done it all. I've even, led a company that's collapsed. We can basically learn from our lessons, right? But no mention of the hundreds and hundreds of Australians that are left out of pocket. No mention of those families that have spent, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, up to $50,000. That's what we know of.
Yeah.
That would have had to have saved, penny pinched for, I don't know their financial circumstances, maybe years. It would take a lot of Australians years to save $50,000. And the thing that's upset a lot of people in the industry is that now it's essentially a CV line. It's a marketing line for you that, hey, I can help your business because I led my collapsing business, without a skerrick of a thought to the lives that you ruined. So we put out the story a few days ago, and I think basically every major buyer's agent and a few brokers and property managers across the country picked up on it, because it's if you've got a soul, it's hurtful. It's hurtful to use this as marketing copy. The fact that you ruin people's lives, I don't know, Phil, doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I'll reserve my opinion, I think. Yeah, anyway. There's a gift that keeps giving you guys that story.
Yeah, well, I'll wait 2 weeks for the next iteration.
So what I never got to the bottom of, and, things move on, but the questions I asked around that, was it 10 million bucks or whatever of creditors?
Yeah, 10.5 or something.
Was for prepayments. I can't remember how they framed it. It was either,
I think it was like prepayments or refunds.
Prepayments and refunds, right?
Yeah, I think that was it.
And no one's been able to tell me.
Yeah.
Liquidators certainly didn't want to tell me how much of that was fees that have actually taken up front and they're sitting on to do the work versus contingent money that they may need to pay back to people based on the guarantees that they've provided. And my position is that is probably more so that than hey, look, we're taking these prepayment of fees. I reckon that's a smaller amount. So that's what smells to me.
Yeah.
Like I'm going, well, did you ever? Were you really ever going to have to pay those refunds back? It's a contingent thing, and therefore, was that the catalyst to quantify potential insolvency, and therefore a reason why they were liquidated the business? They didn't even try and trade out of it. Like it was just so the way it was done. It was just bam, straight into it. I'm like going, wouldn't you fight tooth and nail? You can do deals with the ATO. You can do, you know, you can, you know, the real sort of money owed there should have been able to trade out of it. So that's why I smell rat.
It's very interesting, and I don't think they, and this is obviously opinion, you know, I don't think that the initial communication strategy they had with, I think it was the email, the Facebook post they put up detailing the reasons why, I don't think that was wise. I don't think their choice of wording there was very wise as well, because to blame, for example, the federal budget 2 weeks before, like you don't rack up that many liabilities in 2 weeks. No. Which I know basically everyone looked at that straight away. I was like, well, that doesn't really make sense. Like, yes, you know, it means that your business likely won't grow to the extent that it has grown. But as you and I have spoken about ad nauseum, your good operators are going to keep going, because your good operators are going to have repeat business. Your good operators, you know, whether it's scaling correctly or the proof's in the pudding and people are going to come back for round 2, round 3, round 4, your good operator is going to be good. But the second part there was the meta advertising, the Facebook advertising, which any logical person would look into that and say, so you need new business to pay off the liabilities or to make it work out. That doesn't, the maths doesn't add up. Nah. So I'm not convinced the initial email communications did them a service, to be honest.
Yeah. That whole, I say on good account that it doesn't seem to have affected every other buyer's agent in Australia. The fact that, you know, one of those reasons cited for the financial problems of that business was the increase in meta advertising. Mate, I go to my Instagram, all I got is adverts from buyers agents and property people trying to sell me stuff, right? They're still able to operate in that environment with increased spend. So anyway, there you go. That was a good story, but it's interesting to see the responses. How it sort of changed a little bit, where people are coming out going, "Oh, leave them alone. They've done their best," and blah blah blah.
I mean, I never.
And now everyone's like, "Yeah."
This whole leave them alone. They've done their best. You know, this is just from that initial comms. Like, I don't know. From that initial comms, it just seemed like It just seemed like a series of explanations that didn't really pass the pub test. It didn't pass the pub test. Again, there are buyers agencies that are growing 2 weeks, the liability, everything that we've detailed. And yes, most commentators in the industry have done a 180.
Yeah.
They have done a 180. And you've seen it this week, the pylon on Instagram following our story.
I saw a post during the week from name escapes me, the lady who won the Buyers Agent of the Year at the RAB Awards this year. Dawn Fui. Yeah. Good operator. And she did the post pretty much saying, we are staying strategically small because that's how we can ensure the best outcomes for our clients.
Yeah.
We can actually invest time, energy, and effort. So rather than just being a big shop that's just a process, which I imagine this Dashtop business was, knowing what I know, it was just a whole bunch of people in it. There was a process. It was just an engine that you had to just keep feeding. Her position is that they're staying strategically small.
But that makes sense.
You know, and my base position around this industry and what it looks like in the future, it will fundamentally be a cottage industry. You're going to have smaller operators providing, and I think this is what the future of this industry needs to be, smaller operators providing sophisticated, personalised service rather than a fragmented, you know, big operational, like a Ford manufacturing, everyone does a little bit along the thing. I think there's going to be a universal thing. I think that's where this industry will be and go. Look, you may have larger shops that have multiple people that do that particular thing, and I've used the accounting partner sort of mindset around this, where you just have little businesses inside maybe something bigger where you get some efficiencies, right? But for me, as the buyer's agents that I know and use, I want the buyer's agent to still be on the tools doing
100%.
the buyer's agency, right?
Yep.
Rather than a CEO that doesn't touch a file.
So take a ticket and wait for your number to be called
up.
up.
So, I think that's how this. Look, you'll get a few outliers to that.
Yeah.
There's some very good big buyers agents out there, but I think that's how this industry will be shaped moving forward. It won't be these big industrialized things. It's going to be smaller, more professional operators, much like accountants, and I think that's where the future lies. Bit off topic there, but let's get to some reaction videos.
Paddy.
How are we going with that? Any questions? And we are live, so send your questions through.
Oh
Are
gosh,
you monitoring?
I haven't been checking at all. I've just been
monitoring any of this, and we're happy to chat about anything. So I think we should just do a Q&A one.
The YouTube's up.
On the YouTube. Look, it says we're live now. Here we go. Bam. That's me. Wow. And look at that.
I had a beard in this.
Look who's advertising around us.
Who is?
Pepper Money.
Oh, the good people of.
Yeah. This it. I said, I don't want commercial thing. Pepper Money's all over it. Look at him. Trying to, oh, here we go. Who's the next ad? Norton. Do I need some cybersecurity?
That's also very fit.
Yeah. It's,
Paddy, how are we looking for the...
for our reaction
We're
videos.
getting them up.
Yeah.
And surprise us. We know the videos, but we don't necessarily know the order.
Yeah.
You need to see this. You may have seen it already, but watch this.
And advice was, if you had negative gearing on 2 properties, then what people could do essentially is stack up, if they had 10 properties, stack up their debt onto the highest one, improve their deductions, and that it would distort the market towards basically the allocation of debt because of the nature of negative gearing and how it works. So
at first I thought this was a skit. Then I thought this must be a preview to season 6 of Utopia. No, it's Prime Minister Albanese explaining why they came up, or how they came up with the negative gearing model, the negative gearing policy that they chose, because for a long time it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that they were going to go with capping negative gearing to 2 properties. And it wasn't until probably 2.5 weeks before it was released, 2.5 weeks before budget was released, that they came up with the grandfathering that they did. Now, this is him back in June explaining why they came up with negative gearing policy as it is, because explaining how people could distort the market with their deductions. Now, what I'm concerned about is not only does the Prime Minister not know how negative gearing actually works, but he's been advised this. So Treasury is using their modelling on something that this is not how negative gearing actually works. So just a reminder for everyone sitting at home, negative gearing does not work like this. We call this the purpose of the loan. So when you take out a loan for a property or for any asset that you negatively gear, but we'll just focus on property, it is the purpose of the loan that dictates the deductibility of that loan. Now, if that loan is for purchasing that property, purchasing like all of the purchasing costs like buyer's agent fees, stamp duty, etc., that then determines that it's going to be deductible. If in the future you're actually doing renovations on that property, you can then deduct a loan for the purpose of those renovations. Stacking up properties and loans, it is not allowed in negative gearing rules. I've got to ask again, is this a skit? That's not how negative gearing works. And what are they doing?
So this one was sent in by a listener. Yeah, I mean, the video says it all, right? If that's the advice that you've been given, and you know what, I've never drawn down money from an investment property. So I, when this was first announced, I actually had what the Prime Minister assumed, because I've just never done the process before.
Yeah.
And you explained to me, I think it actually was on a property buzz a few months ago. You go, whoa, that's not really how it works. You're not the Prime Minister. You know, you're just a humble tech salesman.
Struggling
Tech salesman.
Yes, struggling tech salesman.
Door to door with the briefcase, showing people your tech. Yes. It seems that the advice, like the whole concept of it, it's odd.
So a lot of people had that as something. They're just thinking, well, all I'll do, I've got these properties which are grandfathered negatively geared, so I'll just
keep ripping cash out.
I'll just ripping cash out, which you can do.
Yeah.
However, if you pull out a couple of $100,000 and you don't use that couple of $100,000 to do things, what she was talking about in and around that property, if you use that as a deposit for something else, or you go on an overseas holiday, or you take it down to a casino and put it through the pokies or somewhere or other, right? Like, because you're not using it for that purpose, you can't just keep stacking it up and it just keeps your that property that you're taking it out more negatively geared. There's finance and accounting principles all over this sort of stuff, right? So that's why I find that entertaining. The fact that he was sitting there, and I've seen that video before, just going like, oh God. No, back to my original point. Some of the decisions being made, they're getting the effect that they want. So does it really matter? This is like whatever. Well, whatever. Like the fact that he doesn't really know, he should know. Or if he doesn't know, don't talk about it. That's the craft of politics. And by the way, old Albo's been very, very deft lately, not answering questions that people are posing to him, right? And so he probably shouldn't have gone into the nitty gritty. No. That's just, he shouldn't have done that. But made him look bad.
It made him look pretty bad.
But does it really matter? Most people just go, who cares? Who cares? But yeah, for those of you who have negative geared properties, thinking that you can
don't do that.
You can just pull money out and keep them negatively geared and reap the benefits from whatever the tax consequence of that is. No, it doesn't work like that.
No.
So get some advice. Speak to someone around
it. I wonder if you did it, and could you hold the Prime Minister for bad financial advice? I mean what do you provide? But
man.
if you've got a negatively geared property, and that's why they're grandfathering it, then that's financial advice that he's offering. I don't know. Could be one way of looking at it.
So maybe he's actually a finfluencer.
He's a finfluencer.
He's a finfluencer. Do you know what I am enjoying?
How to lose money.
Do you know what I am enjoying at the moment? And for some reason, they've been coming into my my social feed is those Pauline Hanson, please explain the cartoons.
Yeah, they're
brilliant.
Good. Yeah, they're funny.
Really good, and it's all free game. Like it's it's entertaining. I haven't watched the full movie yet. Have you watched it?
Is there a movie?
Yeah.
I'll give it a go.
It's a full movie. I think you'll watch it on her website, so I might try and watch it. It's been out for a while, but good times. Make sure you get advice. Like a lot of people will think what the Prime Minister was thinking.
I assumed, because I've never done it before.
Yeah.
I've never done it before. But,
I don't know if she was a broker or an accountant. I don't know who that lady was, but there you go. Let's do another reaction video.
2 properties in 90 days, or we work with you for free until you hit that goal. That's our guarantee. The reason why we're able to offer that guarantee is because we are so confident in our ability to take students from 0 to 2 properties, even sometimes 5, 10, 20 plus, because we've done it so many times over and over again. And the results speak for itself. Like Nabil, for example, who was a full-time doctor before joining B&B Success, but he was sick of his job. So what did he do? He went all in on Airbnb arbitrage, and now he's sitting at 17 properties in the span of 3 months. And he has since quit his job as a full-time doctor. I'm gonna say that again. This full-time doctor quit his job to go all in on Airbnb arbitrage. And he did that using the same blueprint that we taught him and that we have used to get to 0 to 60 properties in the span of 2 years. And this isn't theory. I'm still actively using the blueprint and the systems that we teach to this day in my own portfolio. We've been fortunate enough to help so many Aussies quit their job and go all in on real estate without having to put massive deposits down and without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you want to learn more about the new wave of real estate investing in Australia, I made a free guide teaching people exactly how to start. So click learn more to watch it now.
My first takeaway is a doctor that's sick of his job. Well, that's worrying. But yeah,
Doctors are allowed to be sick of their jobs.
they are.
as well.
They are. It's like the Hippocratic Oath or something, help people and stuff.
I'm actually getting a lot of that sort of stuff coming in my feed as well.
So I haven't got the Airbnb arbitrage. So what
Yeah.
is it that you can? Are you subletting to an Airbnb person, or is it like you list on Airbnb as opposed to renting it?
So, from what I understand, you don't actually own the property, right?
Oh,
So Airbnb and arbitrage, you go and rent properties
and then you sublet it.
and then you sublet
On
it on
Airbnb.
Airbnb. So the arbitrage being you pay X for it and you get Y for it.
See,
So say you rent a place for a really simple math, $5,000 a month.
yeah,
And you run it as an Airbnb and you bring in $10,000 worth of $10,000 worth of income. Well, you made $5,000.
yes,
Less costs and whatever else, right? That's a really simple math. So that's Airbnb arbitrage. So this is what people are going. Come and do my
so
course.
with the rent must be a tax deduction then. Can you tax deduct rent on a resi property? I don't know.
You could do. So if you
if it's for the
and I don't know who that guy is, but I'm just thinking out loud. You would set up Garman Incorporated.
Yeah.
Garman Incorporated will go and rent
20 properties.
20 properties, which would be business expense, I would imagine. Yeah. Then you would generate income from that, which would come into Garman Incorporated. Then you would deduct the costs, and then what you're left with is the profit. So you don't actually ever own the asset. You just, do an arbitrage on renting. So this is like a thing that's emerging. And you get some of these, like, I've done it beforehand where I've always booked accommodation really late because I never know what I'm doing. So often if I'm in Melbourne, I'll end up in one of these sort of service apartments, right?
Docklands.
Yeah. And all of this is just people doing this Airbnb arbitrage stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, a lot of the time. And you see, these blocks, you go into it, it's just, there'll be 1,000 apartments in it. They all look the same and everyone just, you know. So maybe that's all that sort of stuff. So it means that you're controlling an asset, but you're renting it. Therefore, his point is you have to pay interest on it. You have to pay all the setup costs. You don't get the deposits, blah, blah, blah. So you're controlling assets as a landlord through Airbnb and making a business out of it. I reckon I wouldn't want to be doing that'd be crap work. Like, you got to get these places, then you furnish them for like, imagine his blueprint is you go to IKEA and spend 10 grand on exactly this furniture. You put 4 plates, 4 cups. You'd have to do it at scale, and then you just become essentially a property manager.
Essentially,
Probably let people in, do
Clean.
the bookings, cleaning, all that sort of stuff. Right, it'd be a hard way to make a buck.
Would be.
Also, not
I
for
feel
me.
like it is, and not to knock the business model, because I'm sure it works for some. Man, you wouldn't want to be necessarily holding 20 leases if the market goes south.
Yeah, or for the short-term rental market goes south, because you remember you've got to do the work. Like it's like running a hotel.
Oh yeah, I mean the market as in like just the broad economy. Like, if times get a little bit tough and people have less disposable income to pop between cities, or they're being very selective when they do. Might be left.
My fundamental question around this, and I'm happy for someone to educate me if they want to give me a call. I don't know many property investors who would be happy for someone to take a lease on their property for the purpose of doing Airbnb.
Yeah.
And this is going to be units, and in unit blocks there is typically in the strata arrangements that it says you can't, or the lease that you take on, you can't sublet it. So whether or not they're doing it,
Whether
selling or not, but you Google your property and it's going to pop up and you're going to go, hang on a second, Bill Smith's renting this. Well, why is this up here as a short-term rental? So I reckon that it'd be grey and opaque.
Yeah, I feel like, if you're an investor and there was that big of an arbitrage, you'd probably just do it yourself as well.
You would think so.
I mean, it is a lot of work.
But the problem then, to the argument, is that means you could probably only control one asset.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to eke a living being an Airbnb host. I know a bloke that does it, and it's a little bit of side dough. He does okay.
Yeah.
It's a headache. It's a pain.
It would be.
Not for me, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing to do, but I don't know enough about it. But this is what you're going to start seeing a lot of. And maybe in this market with negative gearing has really decreased people's serviceability and they like property and want to try and make money out of property. If the name of the game now is yield rather than capital growth, maybe there's something in it. I don't know. Anyway, we got one more reaction video, I believe. Paddy, we're going to go again.
If you're comparing buyer's agents right now, stop, because there's one question that makes this decision very, very easy. Who's willing to guarantee your results in writing? We do. If your property doesn't grow by at least 10% in the first year, we will pay you $25,000. Yes, you heard that right. We're coming up to almost 1,000 purchases across the country, and in the last 6 years, we've never bought a property that has not hit double-digit growth. And the reason no one guarantees this is simple. They just simply can't, because they don't have the data, they don't have the research, and they don't have the track record. We do. If you want to see exactly how we do it, I put together a free training breaking it all down. Click on the Learn More button, and I'll walk you through it step by step to your success.
Was that like an oversized hand?
Yeah. No, I feel the person coming from the side.
Yeah.
I didn't see.
It didn't look to scale.
I was
a comedy
focused on
hand?
the socks
Oh.
or the lack thereof.
Oh, was there?
The lack.
Don't be like that.
No,
Megan.
I'm not. I'm just. It's just a property thing.
Yeah.
You're a humble property tech salesman.
Yes.
You wear socks.
I do wear socks.
Yeah. That's the first thing I noticed.
Yeah.
Man, dangerous game. So what was the guarantee if you don't hit double-digit growth? That's. And you know what? Credit to these guys if you can do it. Like, credit.
You don't know what they're buying, right?
I don't.
You
I have no idea what they're buying. But man, that is a talk about putting your money where your mouth is.
Well, back to the dash top point, a lot of the contingency was, I think, around the guarantees that they made to people around growth, which may not be realised. So, see, I don't know. Like, I see that and I go, oh, is that a mistake? Is that an advert from pre-budget that he was running, and then for some reason they?
That's what I was actually doing on my phone. I was going to bring it up.
Is that an advert that they're still running post-budget when they aren't meaning to? Or and I'm happy for that gentleman to get in touch with us. Come and have a chat, because I'd like to actually understand.
Sorry about the sock comment.
Yeah.
But do get in touch.
Yeah. It's
Why is it not working? I want to
I'd this goes to the heart of these guarantees.
14 July.
14 July.
Well, last week.
Yeah.
Week,
Okay.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Guaranteeing anything in this market.
Brave.
I can guarantee you that there will be growth in properties in this market,
100%.
depending where they are.
100%.
And I can guarantee there will be negative growth in property in this market.
Yeah.
100%. And you're already seeing it. People talking about markets coming off 10%, maybe another 10%. It probably happens in more prestige markets.
There will be.
Maybe.
Yeah. There will be some that go down. There are.
Maybe we should download the free ebook and see how they.
Okay, that's a good idea. Yeah, what the suggestions are. Yeah, we'll do that, and we'll report back next week. We'll report back next week. But you know what? This is where, again, all roads lead back to the finfluencers. Sorry, but just being careful of the stuff that you hear online. Whether it's guarantees, but we can park that one to the side. But even that just broad brush financial advice, mate. I've been, especially when it comes to rent, I've dropped rent twice in the last 3 months.
Really? Where?
Melbourne and out of Melbourne.
Okay.
I've heard that it's not the best time to be listing in winter. Makes sense. Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
yeah.
But we're talking not unsubstantial, $20, $20 a week for both. Not unsubstantial sums, I guess. When you've got people online that, especially when we're pushing the yield discussion.
Yeah.
Right. And, one of the big discussion points when you're buying lower yielding assets, which is something that we discuss a lot, and maybe we can unpack in a few seconds, but this idea that rents are always going to increase at a rate and rates will always decrease, and in a very short period of time, you'll be neutrally or positively geared. That actually might not always be the case. That might not always be the case. And some of the predictions around rent, there was a research report, Phil, that came out last week that I think rents decreased like 1.5% over the last 12 months across Australia. So, and I'm not saying this to scare anyone. What I'm saying is having these data points in your arsenal whenever you're looking at people. And on the interest rate side, there was there's been this expectation for the last 2 years that rates will come down at some point. A year and a half ago, we would have expected 2026 would be the year that we started seeing rate cuts. It was only up until a few days ago. We were expecting yet another rate increase in August. Now, most of the major banks have ruled that out. I think that might be a little bit premature, and that's not me saying that I predict a rate rise. But I think it's premature in so much as inflation is still very much above the target band. And looking at the RBA Governor, Michelle Bullock's comments, where she says, if you don't jump on it now, it's going to get worse. That's just the nature of inflation. And the RBA is in the job of nipping it in the bud. So given that is her comments, I think it might be a little bit premature. But whether it's a hold, whether it's a stay, whether it's a, whatever it might be, or raise or drop, it's about being conscious that rates might be stubborn. They might be stubborn for longer than we expect. Rents might be stubborn for longer than we expect. And not to potentially rush into lower yielding assets, because that's what you saw in an Instagram video that in 24 months' time, we predict your rent's going to increase by $150 a week and rates are going to decrease by 2%, and we're going to get you a positive. That might not be the case. The economy works in weird and wonderful ways. Yeah. The Australian housing market is but one part of the global economy.
It's true. This is Property Buzz. Good to see you, mate.
Buzz.
Nice.
Thanks,
good to pull this apart on a Friday morning. It seems to be a good time to be doing this sort of stuff, and we'll keep at it, keep doing stuff. Enjoy the reaction videos; they're really good. Yep. Send them through.
Send them in.
Anything that people are happy for us to get a response to. That'd be really good. And that's it for us today. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Remember to go and check out propertybuzz.com.au. Lots of news and market intelligence there for you as you try and work out what you're doing in property in this market. We'll see you again next Friday. Until then, bye-bye.